But guess what? You have a higher calling, and your calling is to obey God and to save souls.
Jesus 911.
We are going to jump into our next article, next topic here. And this is about another priest suggesting something else going on here. This is about Father Chad Ripperger, who said a priest's obligation is the person's salvation over his own physical well-being. And so what he's talking about there is priests having to give the extreme unction, the last rites to people that need them, especially in this time, Jess.
Yep, he's calling all his priests to man up, basically. And he's saying, these are very strong words, Eddie. Here it says, he's an exorcist, a professor of exorcism. He teaches like at 3 different places, and he's probably written the most comprehensive book on exorcism. It's called "The Introduction to the Science of Mental Health and Exorcism." It's like 8 font. It's like 3 inches thick. It's like an encyclopedia. But he says that priests are under an obligation to give the sacraments to Catholics in imminent danger of death, regardless of what their bishop says. Wow. With Catholics in turmoil and anguish over unprecedented bans on confession, cancellations of public masses, and the locking of churches as the coronavirus pandemic continues, Father Ripperger was interviewed by LifeSite News, and he was asked, and they asked him about losing access to the sacraments, including confessions and the last rites, and he responded very sharply. He said, Father Ripperger said that when the death is imminent, the priest would have an obligation, regardless of what his bishop said, to hear your confession and give you absolution. Similarly, when it comes to the last rites, the priest would have the obligation to give the last rites because his obligation is the person's salvation over his own physical well-being. Wow. Eddie, he's just putting that out there.
Yeah, just, it's very interesting how this timing has worked out, because I think right now, just that in this time of history, especially, the devil has a great advantage on us. See, what we have right now is this getting used to this pandemic, not really getting used to the pandemic, but how the church has allowed us to live through this pandemic. So what he's talking about is a priest, you don't have the option. If somebody's dying in your diocese under your charge, you have to give them the last rites. This is part of what we're doing, and I think that right now we are going through this pandemic just with the increasing government restrictions as it's increased during the last month. I think things are becoming habit for a lot of people. They're not wanting these sacraments because obviously just confession and last rites are something that will save them ultimately, but they're not getting exposed to it. Many of them think you can't get them anyway, so why even try?
Yeah, in other words, Father Ripperger is saying there's a greater good than listening to the government. This is what we would call conscientiously objecting. Because remember, Eddie, this is just a policy that the government is putting down. We're not under martial law, but even under martial law, I think Father Ripperger is telling priests at this point, if somebody's dying, it doesn't matter what kind of situation we find ourselves, martial law, quarantine, partial lockdown, it doesn't matter. A Catholic priest, it's like what St. Peter said to the Pharisees and Sadducees when they said, "Shut up, quit talking about Jesus." In Acts 5:29, he says, I would rather obey God than men. That's what Father Ripperger is saying to Catholic priests right now. He's saying, guys, I know what the government is saying, but guess what? You have a higher calling, and your calling is to obey God and to save souls. In fact, when you look at the Code of Canon Law, which is another thick book I have right behind me, it's about 2.5 inches. It's a red book. The very last canon, the very last one, which closes off the book, I think it's Canon 1752 without grabbing the book, it says that the most important function of the Roman Catholic Church is the salvation of souls. So Father Ripperger, that's what he's saying. He goes, guys, read the Code of Canon Law. The very last law of that red book says the highest function of the Roman Catholic Church is the salvation of souls. And you guys are the surgeons of Christ with the medicine to save souls called the sacraments. So he's calling them, Eddie, basically, I think priests need to be encouraged because they're looking at their bishop saying shut it down, shut it down. They're looking at the USCCB, even the Vatican, shut it down, shut it down. And so good priests are like, what do I do? What do I do? Well, a voice like Father Ripperger, he has a lot of weight in the church. There's certain voices that just have a lot of weight. Like when he speaks, Father Mitch Pacwa speaks, Father Karapi years ago. Yeah. There's people that just carry a lot of weight, theological weight. And Father Ripperger's one right now that carries a whole lot of weight. So this is good that he's putting this out there because what he's doing, he's like dog whistling to all his fellow priests. He's not a bishop, he's a priest. Yeah. He's saying, guys, you know what? Conscientious objection. You know what? You're going to have to cross the line and you're going to have to go against the government's directives and go and save souls. That's what he's doing, Eddie.
Just he's being Christ-like. Christ went against the grain of that.